نقب أول ما نزل نقب الدكتور محمد وهيب نقب على الكنيسة اللي فوقها. أجيت أنا والحجي حكى له قال له في كنيسة تحت على المية على النهر.
We reached a place there on the eastern bank of Jordan River, and he told me, here I know some remains now disappeared.
The remains the Bedouins knew about were not easy to get to, and in those early days the area was still a military zone and had not been totally cleared of landmines.
كنا قاعدين بنفطر ساعة فطور يعني ساعة غدا هيك غدا جاية سيارة الدكتور علينا وقف على الهاج صف السيارة قبل ما ينزل من السيارة وهو اللغم يشيل والله ارتفعت حوالي مترين فوق في الجو احنا هيك الكل راح لها والحمد لله وإن ما فينا شيء.
Despite that incident and the clear dangers of the site, the archaeologists persevered, searching for clues in the thick underbrush.
فزميلي والله الدكتور أصر إلا إنه نبحث. أنا والله الحقيقة بالنسبة لي يعني كنت أتراجع. كان لي إخوان اثنين في السبعينات توفوا نتيجة أحداث، وأنا كنت يعني متردد لأنه يعني ما كنت حاب أستمر في هذا الوضع. الدكتور والله شجعني اعتبار إنه بصير اكتشاف وحدث عظيم.
As the team started digging down by the river, the remains of a large structure that seemed to be a church started to appear in the ground. This was obviously a dramatic breakthrough, but what church could this be?
The Emperor Anastasius built a church dedicated to the memory of John the Baptizer. That church was east of the Jordan and at the site of the baptism.
جابوا منها شقيله وبحشوا اطلعوا الكنيسه هذه كنيسه مريم مدري كنيسه صارت.
وتم العثور على التاجيه، وبعد التاجيه قطع من الماربل.
And we found remains of column, remains of scattered pottery shards, marble pavements, mosaics, caves of the hermits.
And then they started discovering more and more things in the area. They said, look, this is a major find. This is something that goes back to the 3rd century. This is St. John's Church.
Pilgrims' accounts reaching back 1,500 years describe the sanctuary called the Church of John the Baptist, noting that it was near where Christ himself was baptized. The archaeological team knew that they might have been on the brink of a discovery of fundamental importance, not just for archaeology, but for Christianity itself.
So then I went back to my uncle, and he said, so Ghazi, any new projects? Literally, those are his words. So I said, yes, Your Majesty, I think I'm onto something big. He said, what? Well, you know, we think we've discovered where Jesus Christ, the Messiah, was baptized.
The first church described here was in the year 530 by Theodosius, who said the following. He said, 5 miles north of the Dead Sea, there's the Church of John the Baptist, and it's marked by a marble column on which there's an iron cross.
Further excavations revealed an elaborate series of foundations dating from the 3rd century. In fact, what they found were the remains of 5 different churches built one after another on the same spot. The pilgrims' accounts describe the sanctuaries as being next to the river. So why were they making these discoveries on dry land, 500 meters from where the river was flowing?
Now, the river isn't as big as it was 2,000 years ago. So the eastern bank has shrunk. Now the eastern bank is on dry land.
We should always keep in mind the River Jordan has changed its course over the centuries. So it is maybe a little bit further removed than it was in the 6th or early 7th century. Also, many earthquakes, powerful earthquakes, in fact, hit the Jordan Valley.
The river was passing just here, just to the west of these churches, and they caused the undermining of the foundations of these churches and their destruction.
A sequence of churches are built there, they're washed out, and they're still rebuilt and continue to be rebuilt, meaning that somebody really thought that was the place.
The early Christians built their churches in this spot where there's no community. And we should ask ourselves, why was this? Why did they insist to build their churches at this spot in particular? The reason is obvious. They wanted to mark something.
A clue to what the Christians were seeking to mark was a uniquely placed gate. According to pilgrims' accounts of St. John's Church, there was a gate that opened to stairs leading down to the river.
We have a gate that is built east of the Alps, and that makes it something unique too, because you never have churches that have a gate to the east, because the easternmost point of any church is its apse.
I think it was Arculf who says, after staying a night at the monastery of John the Baptist, you walk down to the river, and then he says there are marble steps on both sides of the river which lead down to the water, and above the water there are stone bridge carried on arches.
At the end of those churches, as you go down the ramp and down the stairs, you come to a place where there are now left only these piers. And those piers had the mother of all canopies over it.
These are the steps that were described by Antoninus of Piacenza in the year 570, who said that marble steps lead you to the bank of the river where the Lord was baptized. We have discovered the remains of 4 piers, symmetrical with a staircase. What in essence we have is a gateway for pilgrims to come through, arriving at the center of these 4 piers. If you look at it in plan, it is a cross, so that makes it a unique cruciform baptismal font. Actually, it's the only cruciform baptismal font on earth that used the River Jordan to baptize in.
That seems to have been the place where in the 3rd, 4th century people really commemorated the baptism. But more than that, they went there to be baptized. And as they came out of the site, they drew these tiny little crosses on the plaster, on the canopy.
And on this plaster, we have thousands and thousands of cross marks left by the pilgrims who were baptized at this point.
The first level of evidence is the evidence of the Bible itself. Very clear that it all happened on the East Bank. The second level is the archaeological evidence. The third level is the history and the tradition. And then the fourth level is the pilgrims' accounts, because we have very early pilgrims' accounts throughout the century saying where exactly, X marks the spot, the baptism occurred.
Epiphanius, for example, mentions 60,000 pilgrims holding candles at Epiphany, here at this point. So in fact, all the 5 churches are connected to this point. This is because that's the place that they believe Jesus was baptized.